Hey guys, coming in, this is my review for the Sherlock special that just aired. It wasn't a Christmas special. It was supposed to, be a Christmas special, but obviously it's now January 1st, so I'm not going to call it a Christmas special. It is basically the special called The Abominable Bride. Now, I was really looking forward to this, mainly because we haven't seen Sherlock in, 2 years, and I was really looking forward to it because just to see how this would be, if it would, be a good break from Sherlock, and especially because they were going to the Victorian times, it just seemed like a very fun, like, what-if scenario, and that's exactly what it was going to be, and that was just going to be a standalone thing, and I was really hoping that's what this would be. There would be a fun case that we saw that we would never really have to talk about again, but that's not what this was. For the first hour it was, but then, of course, it wasn't, and if you guys have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, I am going to definitely give you guys spoilers, because I want to do this in a non-spoiler format. I really did, but this is something where I have to, because there are a lot of things that really I don't think worked in this special that they tried to do and just didn't really work. And I'll talk about what worked and what didn't work, but let's get to the main plot. I'm basically going to do this like a movie review because I don't want to go too in depth with what happened. So let's just get into what this was basically about. The main plot basically was, I like that we started off, right away we start off with seeing how Watson and Holmes meet, very much like the beginning of the show. Well, I haven't seen the first series, so I don't know exactly how the show started, but I heard that they were doing lines directly from their first encounter, which, that was really cool. Definitely the way they set all that up. John, Watson, obviously being hurt in the war, and then he finds Holmes, and they decide to do a mystery together, and the big case they have to solve in this special is about, this bride, basically. This bride who supposedly, killed herself. She's basically killed herself, and she should be dead, but Rigoletti is her name, Mrs. Rigoletti. She should be dead, but her ghost is now haunting Baker Street. Not only is it haunting Baker Street, it is now killing off people, and they have to figure out what's going on, and that's pretty much the case that they're dealing with. So that I thought was definitely very interesting. I was really getting into the case, and the thing I really do want to say is they really went all out in trying to make this as different as possible, and they did a very good job with that because, like I said, I thought it was going to be a standalone thing. And without a doubt, one of the things that's awesome about that, it's great to see Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman back on television because they're all doing movies now. They're extremely successful, and it's pretty incredible to think that Sherlock really was the thing that got these two started. I mean, if you really think about it, yeah, they did other things, but Sherlock is really the thing that made these two to start to branch out. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch has done so much since Sherlock, and Martin Freeman, he's done between The Hobbit and Fargo. They both have extremely successful careers, and I love that they're still doing this show, and it's awesome to see them play these roles. Of course, they both work great together, and I like that they changed some things up, like, Sherlock's hairstyle looks more like the 1890s, and then, Watson's mustache, I thought that was really cool the way they did that, and I really appreciate that, and of course, they worked really well together. Mark Gatiss is Mycroft. I like that they made him, fatter here. I thought that was a cool idea, the way they did that. Now, I don't know if they originally did that in the books, but I thought that was really cool the way they did that. Now, of course, one of the reasons they did this is mainly because it was supposed to be more like the books. So, of course, the books took place in the 1890s, and I thought it was really cool to see Mycroft different like that. I definitely like seeing that. Even things like Mary, John's wife, being in the suffragette. I thought that was really cool the way they did that. She's fighting for women's votes, and to see that, Sherlock and John weren't exactly supportive of this, I thought was pretty risky, but you know what? It really did make sense because of the time. At that time period, we weren't as accepting of women helping out with things. We really weren't, and this is a very good example, and I think they did that very, very well. That's something I really appreciate that they did. And they just did a very good job at making all the characters significantly different from how we knew them. That was something they did very well. The costume design was really great here. I like how they tried to change the costumes to make them more look like the 1890s. And also, I love the directing to this. They definitely tried to make it so you didn't need to see the Sherlock special. I thought that, the Sherlock TV show, they did that very well. The cinematography here looked fantastic. Well, whatever call it, cinematography, it looked fantastic here. Very movie-liked, and I definitely loved that. And the case itself, I was really getting into. I thought the case of the, Ricoletti was really interesting because there's a lot you can do with something as simple as a ghost. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty basic case, but with something like Sherlock, a man that is very precise and can just, is very smart and has his own mind palace, there was really a lot they could do with that. So that was all really working well for me. I was really getting into the case, and I really thought it was just going to be a basic thing that I don't really have too much to say about. Where it didn't work for me was, of course, the second half. And here's where we're going to get to spoilers, guys, because I think this was really unnecessary what they did. Yes, we left off on the cliffhanger of Moriarty. I understand that. We left off on the cliffhanger of Moriarty saying that he's alive. Yes, we all want answers to that. They did not need to connect that, though, to this special. They really did not need to do that, and it just didn't really work here. At first, Sherlock is... Now, what I thought they were going to do is have Moriarty, in this world, have Sherlock think about Moriarty, but do something different, not connect it to what's going on. Because at first, we just see Sherlock, he's seeing visions of Moriarty, thinking that he's dead, and I'm like, okay, why are we suddenly talking about Moriarty? Aren't we supposed to be focusing on this case? What does this have to do with Moriarty possibly being alive? I didn't really understand this, and I mean, let me just say, right off the bat, Andrew Scott is badass as Moriarty. I mean, he's awesome. Really, he's awesome. I can't wait to see what he's gonna do in Series 4. Of course, I did not see Series 1 or 2, so I don't know how awesome Moriarty is, but he was really awesome in this episode, I definitely will say that, and all the scenes between him and Sherlock were great. The way he was getting into his mind, the way he was trying to manipulate him and tell him, oh, no, I'm not dead, that was really cool. But then when we're realizing, towards the end, that this is supposed to basically be Sherlock's mind palace, and essentially this is Sherlock's mind, him thinking of Moriarty, didn't really work. They tried to do the same, and people have been comparing this to Doctor Who's twist in Heaven Sent. The reason that made sense is because the Doctor had just suffered a loss. He'd suffered a loss, and he was trapped inside his own confession dial because there was this big confession that he needed to get out, and he trapped himself in there. That made sense here. Here, none of this makes sense as to why they would do this. I mean, why would the Doctor dream of 1890s England? That did not make any sense to me why he would. I mean, yeah, Moriarty being back, that would make sense, but why 1890s England? And the biggest thing about this is that Sherlock doesn't even know that Moriarty's alive. He doesn't know that, and he finds out basically in this episode that definitely something's going on Moriarty. He doesn't know what's going on, but he knows that in some capacity Moriarty's alive, and that really didn't work for me. None of it worked, I have to say. I mean, just the fact knowing that Moriarty could be alive, none of it really worked. It didn't really make a lot of sense as to what was going on there, and really, I think, got very, very messy. Was it cool to see the characters back, after Series 3? Yes, I like that we picked up directly after Series 3, but that part felt like this was supposed to be another episode, and that they wanted this to be the first episode of Series 4, but they wanted to give us a precursor, and that really didn't work. What that seemed like to me is Stephen Moffat going, hey, we got this great idea planned for Series 4, we're gonna give it to you right now, and we hope to see you then, because we know you want to see Moriarty, so we're gonna show you Moriarty, because we know you want to see that, and that's what you're gonna see in Series 4. Okay, that's a great idea, Stephen Moffat, but on paper that might sound like a good idea, but it really didn't work here, because you have this case going on with Ricoletti, and they try to connect it to Moriarty, but I couldn't figure out really what they were trying to do here, mainly because of the fact that eventually we go into the present, and, Sherlock is talking about Ricoletti. Why does that, what does that have to do with anything? I didn't really understand that. I didn't understand what they were trying to do. And in the past part of this, they're supposed to be like, oh, he's on drugs, he's on morphine, things like that. And that just seemed kind of out of nowhere as well. And it seemed like we were starting to, go further and further away from this case to the point where I don't really know if they solved it or not. I don't, because we focused so much on Moriarty that I don't really know if they solved the case. And it was hard for me to stay invested after this whole thing went on, because it became very confusing. I'm like, is this supposed to be in his mind? Is this supposed to be a dream? Like, really, what is going on here? I couldn't really figure this out. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And the ending especially really made no sense. I mean, him and Moriarty's encounter, and then him being there when he's supposed to basically be dead, and John being the one to save them. Yeah, it was cool to see that, and I like the line of Moriarty saying, "Why don't you two just get married or something?" I thought that was funny to show kind of like the bromance that those two have, which is, let's face it, one of the strongest bonds on TV. But it just didn't work. None of what Moriarty said worked. It didn't really connect to what was going on. And it wasn't a bad idea. Like I said, they could have done something really good with this. What they should have done was start off in the present. Start off where we left off. Show that this isn't just going to be a standalone special. So I know that we're going to go between the present and the past for the entire thing. When you start, and the reason it didn't work for me is because the first time we go to the present, it's an hour into this special. So we have 28 minutes left to wrap all this up. And there was so much to wrap up that it really felt very overstuffed, and it really didn't work for me. And especially the ending. I did not understand what they were trying to do in the ending. You know, we end in the present with Sherlock saying, "I'm going to stop Moriarty even though he's dead." And I can't really figure it out. Is Moriarty only alive in Sherlock's head? No, that doesn't make sense, because clearly John and Mary saw him alive on the TV screen saying, "Did you miss me?" We saw that. And we saw in the past as well. I don't understand that either. Why did we see this in the past? That didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And if they would have had it made sense, it could have been fine, but it didn't really make sense there. And then the ending in the past is where Sherlock is talking about this futuristic world he's planning, showing that this might have all been a dream, and that what we might have seen might not have actually been the actual show. I couldn't really figure out. I mean, is this just Sherlock picturing what things are going to be like in the present? That made no sense whatsoever, and I don't know what they were trying to do there. I understand they're trying to connect the two halves together, but it just didn't seem like a good idea to begin with, and in my opinion, really didn't work. It could have worked, and they could have connected it really well, but it just didn't work here. And again, these are all good ideas that just didn't really work on paper. I would have much rather this be a standalone special. I like the case. I thought there was enough weight in the case to propel this entire special. That would have been fine for me. Focus on the 1890s, focus on that. You don't need to focus on the present. You just didn't need to do that. I mean, there have been standalone things. Doctor Who, for example. I mean, yeah, there were things that they referenced in the Doctor Who Christmas special about Clara, but mainly it was its own story. It was about the story of the Doctor and River Song, and that's what it was. And it stayed that way. This seemed like, is it a special or is it an actual episode? That's what it seemed like. And most of what we get in this episode, in this special, really seemed like it was supposed to be something from the first episode. And I swear, if we go back to the series 4 and realize that all of what we saw was just a dream that Sherlock had in his mind in the past, I'm going to be severely pissed, because that was a really stupid idea. And the stuff we got in the present I thought was very interesting. I did not need to see it. I didn't need to see it. I could have focused on the past, and that would have been fine. And it really left me quite disappointed. I just wanted this to be a fun special, and that's not what it is. So I'm just telling you guys right now, if you're thinking this is going to be a fun special, it's not. They reference Moriarty constantly after an hour, and suddenly this becomes no longer about Ricoletti. It's all about Moriarty and what Moriarty can do and mind control, and it just didn't really work. None of it worked, none of it made sense, and I don't really know where they were trying to go with this. So I'm really conflicted here, guys. The first half I really enjoyed, I have to say. In fact, the first hour, I loved it. I thought it was really great the way they were, setting up the mythology, setting up, putting these characters in the 1890s. They really handled all that very well. Getting all the characters in there, not making it seem forced, showing you can tell this story in the 1890s, because one of the big things about Sherlock in general is showing you can do this show in any way. You can tell it in, you can do this show in the present, and they've done that very well. But showing you can tell this, this format of the show in the 1890s, I thought was a very daring idea, and they did that very well. But then when they tried to connect it to the present, it just didn't work for me, and it really took me off guard. And I gotta say, after that, it was very hard to keep me invested. I'm like, I don't really know if I can stay into this, just because of the fact that it wasn't bad. Again, I don't think what they did was necessarily bad. It's just, for me personally, it just didn't really work out. They had good ideas, but it didn't really work altogether. You know, some of this, it just didn't mesh well. It could have, but it didn't mesh well, and because of that, it was very, very scattered. So, I would recommend this to you guys for the first hour, but I can't recommend it overall because the fact that it's a very messy special. I mean, they focused on this Moriarty stuff, who Andrew Scott, like I said, is badass. I can't wait to see what he does in Series 4. But all that seemed like was simply just fan service. Stephen Moffat seemed concerned about fan service. You know, I think, was thinking that if we didn't get Moriarty, people would complain. And yeah, I think people would. I mean, you could have easily had Moriarty in this world. You could have referenced him. Like, referencing that, oh, Moriarty, you know, took his life, things like that, made sense. I think that could have been fine in this context. But you did not need to connect it to what was going on in the present. You just didn't need to do that. And I know I keep saying that, but it really, really ruined what was a very fun special. It was fun, and then it just got way too psychological and way too much like Inception. Everyone has said this is like Sherlock Inception, and very much that's what it was. Because at first this seemed like it was the present Sherlock dreaming, but then seemed like the past Sherlock was dreaming of the present, and I really couldn't tell exactly what their full idea was. And maybe I'm just dumbfounded by it, but either way, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this special. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Overall, I was quite disappointed. I really wanted it to be a standalone. It was not that at all. It was much different than what I thought it was going to be, and because of that, really left me quite disappointed. But that's my review. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this special. If you have seen it, we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the season premiere of Shameless, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.